The version of me that believed in this day is gone. Just gone. Like she stepped out quietly while I wasn't looking and didn't leave a note. I'm still standing here. 200 people, and not one of them knows where to look, which means they're all looking at me, which means I have to keep my face doing the thing faces do when everything is fine. I have been doing that thing for 31 minutes now. There is a man in the front pew who has not looked away once. Not with pity. Not with curiosity. With something I don't have a word for yet, and I have spent 2 years making sure I never needed one. That was this morning, before I knew what the word was. If you've ever had to hold your face very still while your life rearranged itself in public, stay. This one's for you. St. Michael's on Broad Street smells like old candle wax and cut lilies, and I have been memorizing that smell for 31 minutes because it gives me somewhere to put my attention that isn't the doors. Rowan is late. 40 minutes now. I keep my eyes forward. The stained glass above the altar throws amber light across the marble floor in long, quiet strips, and I stand in the middle of it in $4,000 worth of lace and tell myself there is a reasonable explanation. Traffic on 95. A flat tire. Something mundane and fixable that will make this a story we tell later, laughing. I have been telling myself this since minute 9. The officiant, Father Brannock, who baptized Rowan's sister and has known his family for 30 years, clears his throat for the 3rd time. A soft sound. Careful. The kind of sound a man makes when he is trying to signal something without being the one to say it. I don't look at him. My gaze moves, without permission, to the front pew on the right. Sebastian Jenkins is already watching me. He is Rowan's employer. I have been in the same room as this man exactly 6 times over 2 years, and each time I have clocked his position within 30 seconds of entering and spent the remainder of the event not looking directly at him, the way you don't look directly at something bright. He sits with the particular stillness of a person who has never needed to fill silence, and his eyes, when they find mine, do not move away. I look back at the altar. My bouquet stems are damp. I have been holding them too tightly. The side door opens. Not the main doors, the side door, near the sacristy, the one the altar boys use. Father Brannock steps away from his position, and a low murmur moves through the pews like a current, and I know. Before he reaches me, before he says my name, the weight of what is coming lands in my chest a full 10 seconds before it arrives. He shows me his phone. I read the message once. Then I read it again because my mind keeps sliding off it, refusing purchase. She needs me more than you do. You're a practical woman, Sofia. You'll land on your feet. You always do.
I'm sorry.
Don't wait. The lilies. I can smell them very clearly now. The church goes quiet in a way that has texture. The specific, suspended quiet of 200 people deciding simultaneously not to be the one who speaks first. Someone behind me makes a small, involuntary sound. A woman. I don't turn. Father Brannock says my name again, gently, and asks if I would like a moment. I open my mouth to tell him yes. She doesn't need a moment. The voice comes from the right.
Low.
Unhurried. The pew empties. Sebastian Jenkins moves up the center aisle the way water moves, without announcing itself, without asking permission, and the room does something strange. It doesn't just go quiet. It recalibrates. I watch people's postures change as he passes. Small adjustments. The unconscious language of a room that has recognized something it cannot name. He stops at the foot of the altar steps. Up close, his eyes are a gray so pale they red silver in the amber light. He looks at me the way he has been looking at me for 2 years, directly, without apology, without the social performance of not quite staring that everyone else manages. He's not coming, Sebastian says. I gathered that. You have a church full of witnesses and a contract that still needs signing. He says it without warmth and without coldness, the tone of a man stating coordinates. So, do I? I stare at him. You're serious. I don't perform sincerity. A pause. You've worked for my company long enough to know that. 2 years. 2 years of quarterly reviews and building security badges and passing him in the corridor outside the 42nd floor conference room, and every single time the air did that thing. That specific pressurized thing, I filed under irrelevant and stop it, and he's your fiancé's boss, and I had been so disciplined about it. So thorough. Why? I say. It isn't really a question. It comes out flat, genuine. Something moves through his expression. Brief, unreadable. Then, I'll explain the rest tonight. Right now there's an officiant waiting and you're holding dead flowers. My grip loosens. I hadn't realized. I look at Father Brannock, who has the expression of a man whose Thursday has gone significantly off script and who is nonetheless a professional. I look back at Sebastian. Here is what I know. Rowan's message is still on that phone. Practical woman. Land on your feet. The specific cruelty of being reduced to your own competence by the person who is supposed to see past it. Here is what I decide. In the space between one breath and the next, I will not walk out of St. Michael's as the woman those words just made me. Fine, I say. Sebastian holds my gaze for 1 moment, 2, and I cannot read what is in it, only that it has been there longer than today. He turns to Father Brannock. Proceed, he says. And just like that, the most considered decision of my adult life takes 4 seconds to become someone else's. The reception was not supposed to be mine to manage. I had planned for a lot of things over the past 14 months. The florist deposits, the seating chart revisions, the 3 separate conversations with Rowan's mother about the centerpiece height, but I had not planned for standing in the Trenton Marriott's Laurel Ballroom in my wedding dress while 200 people ate chicken piccata and tried to decide whether to offer condolences or congratulations. Sebastian handled it. That is the only way I can describe it. He spoke to the event coordinator for 4 minutes, and the room reorganized itself around a different story. By the time the salads were cleared, the official version had settled. An unexpected change of plans, a private matter. The ceremony had proceeded. People accepted this the way people accept most things they don't fully understand, with relief that someone else had made the decision. I stood next to him for 2 hours and smiled at the right moments and did not look at Rowan's empty chair. I looked at it once. That's all. Claudine was already sitting in it. His penthouse is on the 14th floor of a building on State Street that does not advertise itself. The lobby has no music. The elevator requires a key. By the time we reach the top, it is past 11, and the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows is doing what cities do at that hour, glittering without warmth, all surface. He pours 2 glasses of bourbon without asking. I don't drink bourbon. I take the glass anyway. You'll want terms, he says. He doesn't sit. He stands near the window with the particular ease of a man who has had centuries to get comfortable in his own skin. I know what he is. I have known since my 3rd week working for his company, when I noticed the things that didn't add up and stopped pretending otherwise. Separate rooms, I say. Obviously. Separate schedules where possible. Public appearances when needed, nothing else. He nods once. No, I stop. Recalibrate. What happens in private stays private. I'm not a performance. Something crosses his face. Brief, and not what I expected. Agreed, he says, and his voice has dropped a register, and I do not examine why. I take a sip of the bourbon. It burns in a way that is almost useful. Why are you doing this? I say. Not the first time I've asked. The first time I needed an answer. He is quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of a man stalling, the quiet of a man deciding how much of the true thing to hand over. Her name is Petra, he says. We were together for 11 years. She left 8 months ago because she decided that a life that never ends wasn't a life she wanted. A pause. She has reconsidered. Or she is close to reconsidering. She needs to understand that I have moved forward. I set the bourbon down. You married me to make another woman jealous. I married you, he says, because you needed a move and I needed a reason. The timing was useful. I should find this clarifying. I do find it clarifying. The thing underneath the clarity, the thing I am not going to look at directly, is not his problem. Fine, I say. When this is over, we part cleanly. No complications. Agreed. And when Rowan, the name sits wrong in my mouth now, like a word in a language I've stopped speaking. When he sees what he discarded, when that registers. I want a clean exit from this too. Sebastian looks at me for a long moment. You'll have it, he says. He shows me to the guest room at midnight. It is large and quiet and smells faintly of cedar, and the bed faces a window with the curtains already drawn. He opens the door, gestures me through, says nothing about the day we have just had. He is almost gone when he pauses. He crosses back to the nightstand, adjusts the lamp, a small tilt, maybe 15 degrees, repositioning the shade so the reading light falls across the pillow instead of the wall. He does it without looking at me, without comment. Then he leaves and pulls the door closed behind him. I stand in the dark for a long time. I have a catalog of things I know how to do with a man's indifference, his neglect, the ordinary selfishness of someone who has stopped noticing you. 14 months of practice. I know exactly what to do with all of it.
I do not know what to do with that lamp.
I learned to work a room when I was 24, 3 weeks into a job I was underqualified for, standing at a company mixer with warm white wine and the specific terror of someone who does not yet know how to be useful in a crowd. I watched a senior partner move through that room like she was the only person in it who wasn't performing, like the performance itself bore her, and that boredom was its own kind of power. I spent the next 9 years learning to do what she did. I am good at rooms. I know how to hold a glass, when to laugh, how to make the person I'm talking to feel like the most considered person present. I know how to read who matters and who is deciding whether to matter, and how to treat both like the distinction is invisible. 2 weeks into this marriage, I am doing all of it. The difference is that now Sebastian's hand rests at the small of my back for the room's benefit, and my nervous system has opinions about that which I am actively overriding. Trenton's old money circuit is smaller than it looks. The same 40 people appear at every function wearing different configurations of the same clothes, and they have known each other's business for so long that secrets have stopped being interesting. What interests them is behavior. Deviation. The particular pleasure of watching someone navigate a situation they did not choose. I can feel them watching us. I keep my expression open, unhurried. Sebastian introduces me without fanfare, my wife, Sofia, and the room absorbs it the way rooms absorb things that have already been decided. Then I see Rowan. He is near the bar, which I could have predicted. Claudine is beside him in a dress the color of deep water, and she is watching me the way you watch something you are still calculating, not with malice exactly, but with the careful attention of a person taking measurements. Rowan sees me and does the worst possible thing. He looks relieved. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Relieved. Like he has been braced for something difficult, and I have arrived looking manageable. He crosses the room with the particular posture of a man prepared to be generous about something that was entirely his fault. Sofia. His voice does the soft thing. The concerned thing. You look. She looks exceptional, Sebastian says. He doesn't raise his voice. He barely shifts. He is simply suddenly present at my shoulder, and the temperature of the conversation changes completely. Rowan blinks. I only meant, he starts. I know what you meant. Sebastian's tone is courteous. Final. The kind of final that does not invite a response. Rowan excuses himself inside 40 seconds. I do not watch him go. I am watching Sebastian, who has already moved on to the next conversation as though nothing occurred, as though what just happened was the smallest possible expenditure of his attention. My hands are steady. I make sure of that. We dance once, near 10 o'clock, when the music slows and it would read as strange not to. His hand settles at my waist. Mine rests on his shoulder. We are the correct distance apart for public consumption, and I am absolutely not registering the warmth of his palm through the fabric of my dress, the way he moves like a man who has never once second-guessed his body. You're holding tension in your right shoulder, he says. I'm fine. I didn't say you weren't. The song lasts 4 minutes and 17 seconds. I know because I count them, not because I want it to end. Because I don't, and counting is something to do with that. I am awake at 2 in the morning, which is not unusual. What is unusual is what I am doing with the wakefulness. I am not thinking about Rowan. I notice this as a fact, the way you notice the absence of a sound you've grown accustomed to, the refrigerator going quiet, the traffic thinning. The grief I expected to be drowning and has not arrived on schedule. What has arrived instead is this. The specific, unhelpful awareness of a man sleeping 2 walls away, the memory of how his jacket smelled when I stood close enough at the bar, like cedar and cold air and something older underneath that I cannot name and am not going to try. I rearranged my pillow. The lamp on my nightstand holds its angle, the one he set without comment, without asking whether I wanted it. Still aimed at the pillow. Still exactly right. I have been calling this arrangement useful, convenient, a transaction with clean edges. The lamp does not fit the transaction. It fits something else, something I do not have a category for, and it is the smallest possible object to be this unsettled by, and I am unsettled by it completely. I close my eyes. I do not sleep for a long time. The thing about being good at managing yourself is that you start to mistake management for feeling fine. 6 weeks in, I have the penthouse mapped. I know which floorboard outside the kitchen creaks at a specific pressure point, which elevator button sticks on the way down, where the light pools on the living room floor at 4 in the afternoon in a way that is almost unreasonably warm. I know Sebastian's schedule the way I used to know Rowan's, by absence and return, by the particular sound of a door closing at a particular hour. I tell myself this is practical. Situational awareness. The reasonable behavior of a woman sharing a space with someone she does not fully know. I also tell myself the lamp is just a lamp. On a Tuesday morning 6 weeks into the arrangement, I go to my room to retrieve a file, and the file is not there. Not misplaced. Gone. The entire folder, along with the 2 notebooks I keep beside it, and the charger I leave plugged into the wall beside the desk. I check the common areas. The kitchen counter. The shelf by the door, where things accumulate. Nothing. I find them in a room I have walked past a dozen times without opening. A study at the end of the east corridor. The door usually closed, which I had assumed was his private space and left alone accordingly. The door is open now. My notebooks are on the desk. My charger is plugged in. My files are stacked with the same organizational logic I use, which means someone looked at how I had ordered them before moving them. The windows face east. The morning light comes in flat and clean and falls directly across the desk in a way that makes the whole room feel like it is leaning toward the work. My room faces the courtyard. Good enough light, I had thought, and I had not thought about it again. I stand in the doorway for a long moment. My coffee is on the desk. Still warm. I find him in the kitchen, and I am not calm about it, which I recognize as disproportionate, which does not help. You moved my things, I say. He looks up from whatever he is reading. Yes. I had a space. You had a north-facing room with a desk lamp that gave you a headache by noon. You've been working with 2 fingers pressed to your left temple since week 3. I open my mouth. Close it. The e-study isn't in use, he continues, his tone carrying the flat patience of someone stating a fact rather than making an argument. The light is better. You'll work more effectively. That's not the point. What is the point? And here is the place where I should say something about boundaries, about the terms we agreed to, about the importance of not rearranging my life without asking. I have the words ready. They are correct words. You should have asked, I say. You would have said no. The accuracy of this is its own small injury. He looks at me steadily, and there is no apology in his expression, not because he is indifferent, but because he doesn't believe he was wrong, and the distinction between those two things is something I feel in my back teeth.
You're using it, he says.
That's all I wanted to know. He picks up his reading again. I go back to the East study. I work there for 4 hours without meaning to. The light is exactly right, and I do not press my fingers to my temple once. That night I cannot sleep, which has become a pattern I am no longer pretending is coincidental. I get up at 11:30 and stand in the corridor outside his study because the light under the door tells me he is still working. I am not there for any reason. I am simply awake, and the apartment is very quiet, and his voice, when he is on a call at this hour, drops to a register it doesn't carry during the day, lower, without the social architecture he wears in public. The way a room sounds different when someone has finally stopped performing in it. I stand there for perhaps 2 minutes. I am not listening for content. I know this because I remember nothing of what he says. What I remember is the quality of the silence between his sentences, the unhurried weight of a voice that has no one left to perform for at this hour. I walk away before I can name what I am doing there. Back in the east-facing study, I have been sleeping with the door open, which I also am not examining. I sit at the desk where my files are stacked in my own order, and my coffee appears each morning without discussion, and I look at my hands. Rowan knew I took my coffee with 1 sugar. He had known it for 2 years and still asked, sometimes, like the information didn't quite stick. I had told myself it was endearing. Sebastian has never asked. He has also never been wrong.
I don't do anything with that.
I just sit with it, in the clean east light that I did not ask for and cannot pretend I don't need, and I let it be the complicated thing it is. There are things you know before you let yourself know them. I had been tired for 2 weeks in a specific way, not the tired of bad sleep or a difficult schedule, but the tired that lives behind the eyes, the kind that makes fluorescent light feel like an argument. I had been eating crackers at my desk each morning before the coffee arrived because the coffee, lately, smelled wrong. I had filed both of these facts under stress and left them there. The test takes 3 minutes. I sit on the edge of the bathtub and look at the window instead of the counter, at the pale November light coming through the frosted glass, and I think about nothing with the focused determination of someone thinking about something very large. Then I look. 2 months. The math is not difficult. There was one night, 6 weeks before the wedding, when Rowan had been remorseful about something I no longer remember, and I had been willing to believe the remorse, because I had been willing to believe a lot of things. I had filed that night, too, in the same place I file things I do not want to examine. The file is open now. I sit with it for a long time. The bathroom tile is cold through my socks. The building makes the sound buildings make in winter, a low, settled creak, like something old adjusting its weight. Sebastian will know before I say anything. He will smell it the way his kind smells everything, with a precision that has nothing to do with choice. I have maybe 2 more days before the information is no longer mine alone. This is the only thing that moves me off the bathroom floor. I do not rehearse what I am going to say. I have learned at 33 that rehearsed words come out sounding exactly like that, and the last thing I need is to deliver this news like a prepared statement. I walk to his study. I knock once. He opens the door and reads my face in a single second before I speak, and whatever he sees there makes him step back immediately, makes room without being asked. I'm pregnant, I say. Silence. Not the silence of shock, the silence of a man receiving information and deciding what it means before he speaks. It's Rowan's, I say. Before the wedding. I didn't know stop. I should have told you. When we made the arrangement, there was a possibility I didn't disclose, and that was wrong. He is quiet for another moment. His eyes haven't moved from my face. The child is mine, he says. 3 words. No hesitation. No condition buried in the sentence. No if or provided or assuming. I wait for the rest of it. There is no rest of it. You're my wife, Sebastian says. That's where this begins and ends. The relief is so complete it is almost indistinguishable from grief. The way your legs go when you have been braced for impact and the impact doesn't come, and your body doesn't know what to do with the absence of it. I press my hand flat against the doorframe. Just for a second. He doesn't comment on that either. 2 days later, I am at a lunch with Nadia Osei, a contract attorney who has done work for Sebastian's firm for years, sharp and unhurried in the way of women who have never needed to perform urgency. We are discussing something else entirely when she mentions, with the offhand quality of something she assumes I already know. Whatever Sebastian said to Rowan at the Harrington event, Rowan hasn't made a single move toward contesting the marriage. Not one. His attorney went quiet the same week.
She moves on.
She does not elaborate. I hold my water glass and say something appropriate and spend the rest of the lunch turning it over. That night, I lie awake in the east-facing room with my hand resting flat against my stomach. Not dramatic, just present, the way you rest a hand on something you are still absorbing. And I think about what it means that a man said something so precise, so targeted, that it stopped a lawyer in his tracks, and then came home and adjusted a lamp and moved my files to better light and never mentioned any of it. At 11:40, I get up. I walk to his door. I stand there. The light is off. The silence on the other side is the deep kind, the kind that means sleep, and I am not going to knock on a sleeping man's door at midnight because I have run out of places to put a feeling I have not yet named. I go back to my room. I lie down in the dark and stare at the ceiling and understand, with the specific clarity of a woman who has been wrong about this before and knows exactly what it costs, that I am in serious trouble. Not because of what he did. Because of how long he has clearly been doing it without once asking me to notice. I have been waiting for it. That is the honest thing. For 3 weeks I have felt it the way you feel weather before it arrives, a pressure change, nothing visible yet but the air carrying the information if you know how to read it. Claudine Voss is not careless. She does not move until she is ready, and by the time you see the move, the preparation has already been finished for days. I dress for the Heritage Gala the way I dress for anything I expect to be difficult.
Carefully.
Without rushing. I do my own makeup at the east-facing desk because the light is accurate there, and I look at myself in the compact mirror for one long moment before closing it. I know what I am walking into. I go anyway. The Trenton Heritage Gala is held every November in the Pravat Building on East State Street, a room of vaulted ceilings and donor plaques and the particular smell of old carpet trying to be hidden by fresh flowers. The crowd is the same crowd it always is. The same 40 people in their winter configurations, older money, slower speech, the kind of room that has absorbed 100 years of other people's crises and will absorb this one too. Sebastian is at my side when we enter. His hand rests at my back, the usual placement, the public grammar of the arrangement. I am watching Claudine. She is near the far wall with a glass of white wine, talking to 2 men I recognize from the city planning board, and she is doing the thing she does, listening with her whole body angled toward them, making them feel like the most considered people in the room. She does not look at me when we enter. That is how I know she is ready. It begins, as these things do, with a question. She drifts toward us 40 minutes in, during a lull, when the crowd has thinned slightly and there are enough witnesses left to matter. She is pleasant. She is warm. She asks, with the concern of someone who has been following a story about the marriage certificate filing. She had heard there was a delay, some administrative irregularity. She hoped everything had resolved itself cleanly. The two men from the planning board are still nearby, still listening. I feel the room take a small, collective breath. It's interesting you'd know about a filing delay, I say. She smiles. Word travels. It does, I agree. Though in this case, the delay was manufactured. The paperwork was correct on submission. Someone filed a third-party query that temporarily flagged it for review. I pause. That query came from an email registered to a holding company. Nadia Osei traced it in about 40 minutes. Claudine's wine glass does not move. The flag was cleared 6 days ago. I continue, my voice level almost conversational, the tone I use when I am explaining something that should have been obvious. So, if you were hoping to use a paperwork irregularity to raise questions about the marriage's legitimacy tonight, in front of witnesses, you'll want to know that the irregularity no longer exists. Because it was never real. It was constructed. And the construction has a trail. The silence that follows has weight.
Claudine looks at me.
Her expression does something careful and controlled, and then she says, with impressive recovery, I don't know what you think You filed it, I say. That's all. I do not say it loudly.
I do not need to.
One of the planning board men clears his throat. The other finds somewhere else to be. Claudine excuses herself with a grace that costs her something, and I watch her go, and my hands, both of them, at my sides, are completely still. I turn. Sebastian is 4 feet away. He has been there, I understand, for the entirety of it. He did not step in, did not redirect, did not intervene, did not reach for my arm the way men reach for women they have decided need managing. He is watching me with an expression I have not seen on him before. Not relief. Not pride exactly. Something quieter than either. The look of a man who has known something for a long time and is watching it prove itself true. The distance between us is 4 feet. I cross it without deciding to. My body makes the choice before my mind finishes the sentence, and I am standing in front of him, and his hand comes up to my face, just his palm, against my jaw, the lightest possible contact, and neither of us says anything. The room continues around us. Somewhere behind me a conversation resumes. He sees me. That is the only way I know to say it. Not the version I built to be easy to keep. Not the woman from the altar, performing fine. The one underneath. The one who has been standing in the east light each morning learning what it feels like to be known without asking. He sees her. I let him. There are others in this city who understand what it costs to finally stop managing yourself out of something real. Women who have stood in rooms performing fine, holding flowers, waiting for a life they kept almost choosing. If this story found you, if some part of it already lived in you before you heard it, stay close. Stories like this one are easy to lose, and you deserve to keep them.